see you ladies for this casual chat. So recently I've been going through my library, and I know you two have as well, because we were talking about what has been helpful and inspirational throughout our careers.
Yeah.
And so I know that for me, I've had, I think, two strong mentors in the past 15 years. And as much as I've enjoyed the conversations with them, I also found it very useful to look online and also in some books for inspiration and guidance and some ideas around strategy. And I have to say, I have a preference for books around personal development, self-development in general, things that will teach me, how to overcome my fears, for example, or how to help me grow my career, how to help me, find ways to put together a project, whether it's personal or for work. And so I wanted to share some of the learnings that I've had throughout the years, some of my favorite books here. What about you? How do you approach those books?
Yeah, I think for me, I've always gone against the grain. So the saying is, don't judge a book by its cover, but I do. I definitely do. I go for, if I'm reading fiction, it's the florally covers, because I know those are always going to be a surprise somehow. And then if it comes to nonfiction, it's something with an edgy title. I love that. This one, for example, is seriously one of those things where it's like, this is an edgy title, so it must be good. But yeah, I think that's the easiest way to do it. Judge the cover.
It triggers something.
Yeah, it's that emotional response. Yeah. I think that's a good one.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I do the same. I actually switched like maybe a year ago or 2 years ago to using a Kindle, which is just easier when you travel loads and you want to go through different books at the same time. You don't have to bring them in. And this is what I do a lot. Like, I select books that I find really interesting because of the cover, or because they came in recommended by others. I see lots of recommendations now on LinkedIn, for example, people who recommend some books that you should read. And if I know the person or have followed the person who's recommending the book for some time, then I feel more enticed to also go and read it. And it's really hard to make a selection of the things that are, has really, for example, helped you or supported you. I think for me, it's always been a bit of a mix and picking up bits and pieces from different types of books. There's not been like one book where I've been, oh wow, that was the for all and end all. I think it's just some learnings that you take from each book. And for me, I think they're more like for inspiration, which is also helpful. And I go on and off with books. So I could read, in a period of a couple of months, many books. And then I stop for a couple of months because, I don't know, it's not my priority anymore. But I'm now trying to make it a habit to read maybe a couple of pages every night before I go to bed.
I'm
just
horrible
to calm
with
my
that.
brain.
I'm with you on this, and I go through periods where I like to read a paper book because it's easy also to take notes, put a sticky note on it. But I love walking, and I also listen to a lot of audiobooks, and sometimes it helps you memorize the content if you're in that environment where you just you can zoom out and just focus on what you're listening.
And you also have the summary apps where you get a really good summary of particularly management books. I mean, it doesn't really make sense to do that for a novel, I think, but for a management book, and just take away some of the key learnings. And usually they go through the book in about 15 minutes, which is quite easy, and you feel like you've gained something. But reading on itself is a delight, I find, if you have the time and if you it's one of those things. I think with writing, reading is so important. I mean, so much about what we do is writing, so I think that is also just great inspiration for different styles of writing, putting things down properly in a way that makes sense for people. I've got a lot of help from books
by actually reading them and making sure that I can see how different writers write. And that's why it's like so important to actually make the time to read.
Yeah.
I should do that more, but yeah, definitely I'll try.
Yeah, totally agree. Okay,
right.
So let's get into it.
Yeah.
I think we've all made a selection of books that we wanted to talk about today. We don't have to go through all of them.
Yeah.
And what did you bring today? And can you share us a little bit more about what you've learned from that book?
Okay, so I've got two that I brought in. I've got one that I think most people have read. I've got Atomic Habits by James Clear. That has been amazing for me because I have ADHD. So actually having a routine has been, I want to say, hell over my entire life. Like, I know I need it. I know that it makes sense and makes life easier. But until I read Atomic Habits and I learned about habit stacking, like actually making sure that when you're brushing your teeth, you are maybe tidying up a little bit in the bathroom or doing something as well, so that those things can like stack up and then you're done with whatever you need to do in that specific space. That has been a game changer for me, because I will pick something up and I'll walk to the kitchen and then I'll put it down because I got distracted by cleaning this up, and then you move around like that. And I think just being mindful about what I'm doing has been really, really big for me, and I think that's the main takeaway that I got from Atomic Habits. I mean, James says a whole lot, but it's a book about habits. It's a book about putting those routines in so that you focus on the important things in life. The brushing your teeth and cleaning up the bathroom and having good sleep hygiene, that is mundane. That's the stuff we have to do every single day. Once that's sorted, once you have that stuff in the bag, you can focus, you can sit and be mindful with what you're doing, because you're not sitting and thinking, oh, did I do the laundry? Oh, did I do this? Because it's done.
And how does that translate to work?
Oof. Yeah, I think moving to a startup has been something very, very interesting for me, because I mean, we come from an environment, the way that corporate works, your time is dictated for you. You know that I sit down at 9, I do my job, I go for lunch, I come back, and that routine is there, it's built for you. But now, when I've got a whole bunch of things to do, I've got content to create, I have to write, I have to reach out to different people, I need to be able to sit down and create that routine for myself. So in the morning, it looks like wake up, take meds, do the coffee, clean up the kitchen a little bit, go sit down, open the laptop, do the work, write. I've put those little steps in place so that when I'm sitting and actually working, I'm focused on work only. So yeah, it's really, it's made things so much easier for me. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's really interesting, right? Well, I think I have something that resonates a little bit with this, and it's called The Big Lip. And what particularly resonated is that, so the author is a psychologist, and she does a lot of research around behaviors. And so why people succeed at some things, why they don't take the leap, which means they don't necessarily feel confident that they can achieve something. And there is a big chapter around time and how you see your own time. And one of the what I like about this book is that she basically debunks a lot of the limiting beliefs that you have, also around time management. And she really teaches you on how you can reclaim this power back of being, the manager of your own time. And you should be focusing on what makes the needle move, and what is going to create a big impact. And why is it important in building your self-confidence and then, building that trust in yourself in doing bigger things, is because, well, as soon as you start reclaiming your power, you start seeing achievements and you start building your confidence, and slowly you can achieve greater projects. So I think that, this is something that, I really liked. And as you said, I mean, your experience around ADHD. I appreciate that it can be very difficult to manage your day, and sometimes you can feel lost, and there's so many things, and I've taken that spoon and what am I going to do with it? Or, I've opened this PowerPoint document to prepare this presentation. What am I going to do with it? Those notes, what do they relate to? What was the meeting, etc. And I think that in being able to focus on what you do and, being able to manage your time better, you can also start seeing results and building that trust. So, So this is why I really like this book. Called The Big Leap, by the way.
Yeah.
And I would recommend it to anyone who is kind of not so early in their career perhaps, but thinking about growing in their career. And this is exactly when I read it. We often say that we roll into our roles at law firms, which means that we don't necessarily see a clear career path. And as soon as you start seeing what you really enjoy doing in your roles, well, you're not necessarily sure that, okay, I'm going to be a right fit going forward for the firm, or where does the firm see the value, or where can I bring value? And you can start self-doubting yourself. And I think this book can be really helpful in bringing some ideas around that. Yeah.
Good. Well, if we are talking about mindsets, then I think I have to bring this one out, which is The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. If you haven't read it, read it. I'm sure people watching, most of them will have read it. I mean, they've sold over 6 million books, so I'm sure half of the world is practically reading it. I was gifted this book by a former colleague, and I started to read it straight away, and I just couldn't stop. I think I read it almost in one go. And the reason for that is, well, the story is about a monk who sold his Ferrari. He was an ex-US litigator, worked for a big law firm, and he just decided that this was not for him. He was really quite unhappy, actually, and he wanted to change the way that he would live, because he felt, there is only one life. He met with a monk, and I think it was a moment of epiphany for him, where he was like, okay, what am I doing? Who am I? What do I want in my life? And I think he switched to gain control over his life, rather than his life being lived for him or through, the lens of other people. Which is what is happening a lot, I think. And he also makes reference to the fact that he feels people generally die from the inside at a very young age, because they start to be feeling like, it's okay, I'm just going to sit on the sofa, do nothing for the whole evening, relax my brain, and that's okay. And it's not to say that there's anything wrong with it, but he feels there is a bigger purpose, and he encourages people to find that purpose. And I think ever since I started to read this book is that I also started to think about, what is my purpose? What am I doing? And I think especially when you work in law firms, it's very difficult sometimes to step out and really to take a moment and reflect on that, right? Because you're so busy and you get consumed by so many tasks in a day, demanding partners and lawyers and team members and anyone else who just always needs something now. And you're so much focused on task driven, but also accomplishment, making sure that things actually happen, that you jump from one thing and then the thing is finished, and then there's never an ending. There is always like, okay, but the other project has already started, so we have to just keep moving. The rat race, I suppose. Like it's a constant moving thing. And I also started to notice after I read the book, and there was lots of different practices, I was like, is this the Barbara I want to be in life? Is this really what is my purpose, to be serving this law firm and this law firm only, and the partners within this firm? Or is there something bigger than that? And I think from a very young age, I generally felt like there needs to be, I need to leave this planet having made an impact in whatever way it is. And that impact, I think, can be defined by every individual in their own way, in their own shape, in their own size. I mean, there's people who built the Burj Khalifa. That's quite big. I think that's the whole point around having purpose. So I think that's something that really resonated with me. what he's very strong on is to master your mind. I think he has no time for people who are feeling a victim of situations. If things happen to you, he feels you need to embrace it as something that you can learn from rather than become victimized by whatever occurred. And yeah, I mean, every individual on this planet goes through tough times. I mean, life is ups and downs, right? It's not only peaking all the time. You know, you have moments where you are faced by illness or by people around you getting ill, or there might be, you know, decisions that you took that didn't really quite work out the way you wanted to, or other things that had a major impact or influence on your life. But, you know, grab the bull by the horn and own it and take ownership of those situations and learn from it, rather than think, why did this happen to me? This shouldn't happen to me. It only happened to me. And, you know, and then start to feel really bad about it. Another thing that I feel is really useful, especially, you know, if you enter a role in BDM marketing in law firms, is what he's calling practice Kaizen. And that's effectively making sure that in everything you do, you seek self-improvement. So you constantly look at, okay, what have I done and how can I improve myself? How can I become a better version of myself? From simple things like I stepped into the elevator. Did I actually say hello to the people around me? Was I smiling? Was I nice, kind? Maybe not. Why wasn't I? You know, life is too short. I should just be kind. I can acknowledge the presence of other people, for example. And I think his level of discipline around everything that he does. I mean, he also wrote the book, The 5 a.m. Club, says it all. I became an involuntarily member of the 5 a.m. Club because of my children. But I must say, like, this is the whole thing, the discipline, the structure, I think the whole setup around, okay, you are just going to trick your brain to do, you know, habitual stuff, you know, back to atomic habits. I think it's building those habits for a more effective day, because we are great people and we can live a great life, and you define what that great is. But he feels it's endless. It can be anything. You can set your mind to achieving anything you want in life, as long as you take the steps and you put your mind to it.
Yeah, absolutely. It actually, it's really interesting because it echoes. So, two things that I want to mention. First of all, I really like the title, and it's quite provocative, right? It's Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, and I find that a lot of those self-improvement books have really interesting titles. And something that resonated with this book is this other one that I read, which is called F It, Do What You Love. And they share, I think a lot of what you've said is also mentioned in this book. The author is a former advertising senior executive. He used to work in London, and basically he decided to quit his life, not his life, sorry, but his career, when he was offered this amazing opportunity of this very senior role at a very big advertising agency. But at the same time, his wife had the opportunity to go move to the Italy countryside. And he thought, okay, this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance. And what do those opportunities mean to me, each of them, and how are they aligned to who I am really, and what is going to make me more happy. And a big word in his book is authenticity, and you need to be authentic to yourself. And this is something that is really important, because you cannot really fake who you are or what makes you happy. And it's the same in your private life as in your career, right? And in other books, in another one, I think it's this one, How to Change, they talk about something really interesting that is called your zone of genius. And your zone of genius is where you perform the best. And it's really connected to who you are, your authentic self. So it's where you are not only performant, but also what makes you happy. And if you really manage to work on those two things together, you can have a thriving career. And I think it's something that is really important, right? And so BDM roles, for example, there are so many things that we need to look after. Large teams, your role might be really defined around one activity, but at many firms, you will be working directory submissions, a bit of PR, a bit of managing brands, definitely putting together proposals, and many other things, events, you name it. But it's important to recognize where you're really good at and what you're really good at. where you will bring the most value to your organization. It's really important, and it's important also to communicate this with people around you, because you can prioritize those activities. I know that there are always aspects that things that you don't really like doing that are necessary and that you have to do. But it's good that you're able to say, right, I really enjoy doing this. I'm really good at it. This is where I bring the most value. And those other areas, well, it's going to take me longer, or I need help around this. This clarity, this authenticity. So first of all, people can really connect with this. And also, what a delight, to work with someone who is fully transparent and can tell you up front, not so good at it. I think this is really strong. Yeah.
I think strength-based working.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's like something that is a through line through these books, is it's approaching every day with your full self, knowing that, okay, your weaknesses are stacking habits, knowing that maybe I'm not strong in proposals and it takes me really long, but I can really knock out an event in a few minutes. So let me sort out organizing that so that I can focus my time on this. I think that, and saying that to people, that it comes across, it's so genuine. I want to speak to people like that know themselves, that are saying like, listen, I know my weaknesses. I know that I've got flaws. I'm a person, and that's how I'm showing up. And I think it's so essential in working, because you are able to, like you say, connect with people. And that's most of the job. That's most of the job done. It's saying to somebody, hey, listen, we gotta get this thing done. I can do this, you can do that. How do we get this done? And that comes from knowing yourself and following your passion, following your truth, following your purpose. It's so important.
Yeah, it's true, but I do see some challenges there. I think especially when you come in sort of like as a maybe more junior, in a more junior role, or at a younger age. I mean, the things that you've said and what is written in the book, it sounds, beautiful. Yeah, stay true to yourself. Authenticity is important, but if you come in, if I look back at my own career, I came in well educated but with no experience, and I started off, as at a law firm reception, and I was definitely intimidated, right, by the different personalities and characters that were walking around. Nice people, don't get me wrong, but it was still, for me as an outsider, I'm now in a law firm. My reference is the law firm series, where everything is looking slick and it's very fast paced and it's quite intimidating in a way. So how do you not lose your authenticity when you're in such an environment, if you feel like, I need to blend in, because blending in, I think, is the fear of losing a bit of what you have yourself. And this is what we do constantly when you're in a relationship. It's great if you can be like constantly your authentic self, but it also doesn't work 100% of the time, because you're still with a very different individual in that relationship. So, and especially in our roles, you have to constantly bend yourself and adjust yourself and adopt to make sure that you get what you need from the other person. And so, it's good to read about it, but I think it also needs a bit of context. Maybe.
Definitely.
I think that actually is a perfect segue to the other book that I got, because this one is, I don't really like those sorts of taxonomies that people try to put personalities into, like what's those, what's the name of that thing? INFJ, those little hierarchies of personalities. But this one is pretty easy. It's 4 colors. So the book is Surrounded by Bad Bosses. It's actually a part of a series. The first one is Surrounded by Idiots. But I've got that one as well. But
me too. I actually read it.
I'm glad. I'm not the only one reading this. And it puts things into so much perspective, because the main point of these books in the series is it's about listening. It's about focusing on that part of a relationship. And the only way that you can listen to somebody is to know how they speak, what they mean when they say certain things. And it's useful, I guess, to sort of type people you don't want to put people into boxes, but it's a good first start, like zodiacs, for example. It's like, oh, okay, that's why somebody might be able to do that. That's what we do as humans. We need to understand things. But I think this book really helped me because it's one of those things where you need to understand the people that you're working with. And if they're not open and honest about it, you sort of pick up the patterns and you're like, oh, okay, that's why you do this. Oh, that's how I should approach you with this. And that's what this book does. It gives you these 4 color categories of the types of bosses and people that you'll meet throughout your career, and how to approach things differently, a baseline of your responses to them, because that's the only thing you can control. You can't control the way that somebody treats you, but you can control the way that you respond to it. And I think that is what the message of this book is. It's still managing your authenticity because you're still going to show up as yourself. Yeah. But you sort of repackage it for difficult people, because that's what we face. We face difficulties in the workplace more often than we get the wins, sadly. But you sort of want to make that easier on yourself and make it easier on the people that you're working with. If you can approach somebody the way that they want to be approached, easy peasy, you get through the day so much faster, no tears, no less tears. And it just makes sense because somebody feels more connected to you because oh, okay, you brought it to me in the way that I needed it. And that's rare, I think, for people to actually try and understand the people they're talking to, because we're so much focused on understanding ourselves. And I think this book really just gave me a lot of perspective at a time I really needed it. And it really is, it's something that you can take through everything. I mean, Surrounded by Idiots is a great one, but I think this one is really important for somebody who's coming up, because if you're more junior, like you say, if you're more junior, you need to approach things in a very different way to when you're more senior, where you're sort of making decisions, and it's okay, you can say what you need to say, but when you're junior, you need to say it in a very specific way, or else it comes across really wrong. And very easily.
I think it's also I'm just going to pick up this book, and I'm not going to read the title out loud. I think it says it all, but this book is actually interesting because this was gifted to all of the partners at a firm that I worked for at the start of the partner retreat. We found this in our bedroom. And I think it's quite a daring move. I think it's quite unique to do this, but I really liked it for the fact that it highlights a couple of things really well, and it links, I think, to the book that you just mentioned, Surrounded by Horrible Bosses, because a lot of the time people are not necessarily wanting to be horrible, or they're not necessarily horrible people. I think it's the behavior that is sort of like defining what their role then is. And if we can basically take that behavior out and really assess only the behavior that you see, rather than instantly labeling people, as you say, put them in boxes because they have shown a certain type of behavior, it doesn't necessarily mean it's part of their personality. It might just mean they have a horrible day, or they are under a lot of pressure. And if people are under a lot of pressure, they just take out, different types of behaviors that might just not be the nicest behavior that they could typically show. So I think it's just good to put those nuances in place when you communicate and speak with people. But what the book does say is it's very much a guideline for business owners, effectively, CEOs of companies, to really understand that one toxic person can ruin everything for everyone very, very quickly. So it's good to identify if there is any toxic personality, so people who are generally there to ruin stuff. It's not just only about the behavior. That is obviously really bad. And bad behavior are things like, gaslighting, backstabbing, etc., blaming, bullying. Obviously, doesn't belong in the workplace, doesn't belong anywhere.
Yeah.
But it does happen. It does happen a lot. And he is just suggesting when you go through your selection process, you have to be a lot more careful. And we see a lot of this behavior typically with people who are very successful.
Yeah.
So rainmakers in law firms, for example, I think they would fall into that category more often than not, because they've made it. They have quite a big ego. Typically, I think people are seeing them as they're the revenue generator. They're bringing in the revenue, and they're therefore somewhat, untouchable, I suppose. But they shouldn't be, I think, because that's the toxicity that then comes into the firm. And as soon as people start to feel uncomfortable around these people, then the workplace is changing, and it has a massive impact on culture. And the culture starts obviously from the very beginning, where you hire the people that are fully aligned with your values. Yeah. And this is why every time, again and again, we keep on saying, your brand is not just a logo on the wall. Your brand is, your value. Your companies are your values. Is how you want people to talk about you, feel about you, think about you, and feel the firm and feel what it is to belong to this type of firm. Yeah. And if those people that you hire don't match your values, don't do it. Just don't go for it. I found it a really eye-opening book, I think, because law firm culture is nice. I think we have professionals, lots of them, who generally work really well, but it's also a high pressure environment, and I think that sometimes doesn't necessarily take the best out of people.
I think that's so important what you said about it's not just the logo on the wall, because a lot of times you see with companies in every industry, you've got a set of values that they have on their website. But you speak to people that work there and you're sort of like, wait, did they just have that page there as like a tick box thing? Yeah. Because these people don't sound like they have those values at heart. Because it's not just something that you put on the website and you tell people, oh, these are our values. We value collaboration and. When you hear that people are having this experience that is not collaborative, you're not empowered, and that is what you talk about with branding, and also with firm culture, with company culture, with your own culture, because if you don't have your own personal values, you can't act with any sort of integrity, authenticity with other people. So it's very difficult to recognize that maybe I am the a-hole in the situation, and maybe I approached that really badly because I had a bad day. I mean, that's your responsibility as well. You need to take that on for yourself, but it also is realizing that has an impact on other people. And I think that that's the through line with everything that we've spoken about is it's about seeing it in yourself, but also noticing that it has an impact on other people.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And actually, we often say that people don't remember what you say, but they remember how you made them feel.
Yes.
And in retail, we have this saying, if you have one happy customer, they're likely to refer your business to 3 people. If you have one unhappy customer, it's likely that you will have lost 7 potential clients.
Yeah.
And I think it's the same in professional services. So first of all, I'm sure we have all experienced this. When we speak to, colleagues, people, other BDMs, even lawyers from other firms, when we say, oh, how are things going? We never start with the good experience.
Yes.
We always start with oh yeah, this annoying partner, this annoying colleague, he did it again, right? And I think that it's delusional to think that this conversation stops there. This conversation will travel really far, up to potentially clients. And these are impressions that really stick. So people will remember this. So really, it's to go back to what you were saying, the culture is really part of your branding, and this will definitely travel up to your clients' ears and shape this identity and this perception of your firm.
It's something you can't fake. It's based on the people that live and work within the firm.
Absolutely, yeah.
And if they feel good and happy about the environment where they're at, they'll show it in a way.
It's
talk
true.
about it, etc.
Yeah, it's true. There is one thing. So when you mentioned that you have to. Sometimes you're having a bad day, and so you might not be the nicest person to be around on that day, and you have to recognize that with other people as well. We all have our own reality, and other people have their own reality. And this book I mentioned earlier provides a bit of an answer for this, that says that really you shouldn't take things too personally. Often, the tone or the way the message was delivered is not necessarily meant at you directly.
That's why email is so tricky.
Absolutely.
Because it has no context. And this is actually a really good step into another book that I read, which is called Simply Said. And this is all about I'll give it to you actually to read, because I know you're into writing so much and you do it so well.
Thank you.
But this is a really useful book, because the first thing it basically explains is make sure that you know your audience, understand who you're actually talking to, whether it's you're talking to people, you're writing something for people to read. We do this all the time in our roles, right? We write proposals, we draft social media messages, we write LinkedIn posts, we write directory submissions, we write web copy, so many things that we write. We write emails to partners, we do internal comms, we do comms to our teams. And every time there is a different audience, and we need to make sure that we understand the audience that we're trying to address. And that basically means that you need a real deal of empathy, because you need to effectively really try to understand and anticipate what is the other person going to ask me once I've sent this email, for example. What might likely be their reaction if I send this email? And that will help you to define, okay, did I write this in the right way? And it's not about you, as in, for me personally, I can't just write an email. I learned the hard way, because I am very much from the Netherlands, Dutch being known as quite direct people.
Yeah.
Coming into a firm, mostly with British people, was somewhat of a clash. So I had to really start to also understand the cultural nuances in communication, right? Is making sure that you say something that is going to resonate with other people who come from a different culture. For me, an email, which is just stating, this is what I need to get done, this is how it's going to work, thank you very much, that will do the trick. Not for everyone.
Yep.
And that's what I had to learn, right? There needs to be a bit of a soft introduction. Hey, how are you? How's it going? Hope all is well. And then we get into the actual message, but the message should also be crafted with a could you, would you, please. Whereas for me, it would probably just be as much as, hey, I need to get this done. Can you help?
Yeah. I can so relate to this.
100%.
I mean, it's so interesting, because I don't think there's a single law firm in this world that is not exposed to the global market. And so we all had or have to deal with people who are not from our own culture. Almost on a daily basis. I mean, here in this region, definitely, but in the UK, in France, in South Africa, I think we can all relate to
Lost
this, right?
in translation.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And you have to adapt what you say. And there was a research done a few years ago, and it said that both emails and text messages were being received and perceived as 15% more aggressively than they actually were. And I want to believe that the vast majority of emails and text messages that are sent in the context of work are actually not aggressive at all.
No, they're not intended to be.
Exactly.
At all.
And I mean,
we can't help it.
And I mean that comes from you as well. It's how you receive something as well, because if I'm having a bad day, if I'm already stressed and I get a very blank no, hi, how are you, you didn't greet me by my name in the email, and you just spelled out exactly what you wanted, but it's just boom.
It might land differently than when you're a happy day.
Exactly.
When it's a happy day.
When everything is going well and you go, hi, this is what I need, awesome, bye. I'm like, okay, cool. You would direct.
However, I think it starts with the person sending the email and crafting the message to reach the right
100%
audience in the right way. I think
100%. I think there's some control that you have. You can't just take it away and just say, oh yeah, I'm receiving it really wrong. And also your perception of the message, it comes from the way somebody acted before. So it's taking that responsibility and being like, oh, okay, I was a little bit aggressive in this one. I can actually just fix that.
And also one thing I noticed when I read the book was it talks a lot about using complicated language, too many words, filler words and stuff. I really started to focus on, okay, could I reduce my word count in the sentence? And then I started to realize, well, actually, I use a lot of filler words. They have no use. Why would I not just get to the chase? But in a polite way, like in a good way. So still be polite and address what I need from the other person, but just say it slightly differently in shorter language, I suppose.
I think that's something that I've really focused on lately is I found myself writing emails where I just wanted to, and I'm like, what? Why are you you softening this no blow? There's no blow. I'm checking in on something. That's all I need
normal
to say. It's a normal thing. But you come in and you're like, I just wanted to check in, and I know if you sort of like dumbing this thing down or softening this blow, sugarcoating things that don't need to be sugarcoated. And if you come in and you've done all the good stuff, you've said, I hope you're well, and could you, would you don't need to add in those fillers. I've removed just out of my email vocab because it adds nothing, absolutely nothing. And it doesn't make me seem any more polite. It just makes me seem more wordy. That's it. That's all wordy. That it does.
That doesn't add to the message that you actually want to get across.
Exactly. Being brief is something it's a skill.
Yeah, absolutely. I catch myself doing the same. And also when I write emails, I do this thing where I try to stick to one idea per sentence to not overcomplicate anything. Interestingly enough, so recently I've been proofreading some directory submissions for some law firms, and again I'm finding those matter descriptions but also this is the perfect exercise where you can typically think, right, okay, how am I going to simplify what I've done for this client so that someone who's not a lawyer can actually understand, which is very important because the researchers are not lawyers. They actually are not sensible to the intricacy of the matter, or really how complicated your approach to the scope of work or your strategy was. What they want is to understand what you did. They want the bigger context because this is something they can understand and appreciate. Really interesting exercise again on this.
I think just to piggyback off of that one is I was recently writing about our client fireside chat, and the idea of being so wordy in the directories, but then the juxtaposition of that with your experience in a proposal, and you're just saying the same thing over and over, an acquisition of, a dispute related to, and there's no context there. It's sort of like, that's where you need to put the context, because in directories, like you say, the researcher isn't a lawyer, but when you're presenting something to your client, they need that extra context. They need to know how this relates to them and how you can help them. So it's sort of like switching they switch the audience. And knowing your audience, knowing what it is that they need to know, that should inform your writing. That really, it should be the main point of, is this person coming to me because they need a solution? Then I give them all the details on how I worked on a similar solution. Or is this somebody who needs to highlight how I'm the best of the best? And that's big picture. They need to know what was the win, what made it different, what made it innovative. And that's big picture stuff. So it really is. It's about knowing who you're writing to.
Yeah. On that note, how to PR a law firm. So I've known the author of this book for quite some time, Melissa Davis. She has her own agency, MD Communications, in London, but she works globally. And she launched this book, I think about 2 years ago, or maybe 2023. And she brought it at the IBA, the International Bar Association annual conference. I really enjoyed reading this, although I thought I knew quite a fair bit about, how to PR a law firm. And PR and communications is not just, the emails that we write to each other on a day-to-day basis, but it involves so much more, right? It's not about internal comms only, it's about external comms. How do we communicate with clients? How do we set up like real bespoke campaigns? But also she's an expert in crisis communications. And we've seen a bit of that, in recent years with law firms hitting the news for various reasons. And she breaks it down really, really well in her book on what to do. As you can see, it's not a massive read. It's quite a thin book, which makes it really easy to go through as well, because every time I see a book with over 300 pages, I instantly feel disencouraged and demotivated to get through, because I'm like, where is the time? So this actually is a fantastic read. And she breaks it down into different parts where she speaks about PR, how to make sure that it's all aligned with your strategy, to get engagement on the communications that you do, so that you don't just throw things in the ether and hope for the best, which sadly still a lot of firms are doing that, right? We still see a lot of this, and she talks about all the various ways to basically PR your firm through websites, social media, etc. So it is a great guide, I would say, for us, just to refresh your memory on everything PR, and it comes from an absolute expert. But also, I think generally for law firm owners, for example, also for them to have a better understanding of, okay, what is the PR and comms function within a BD and marketing team? What do they actually do? And how do they and could they support the firm in achieving better results on that front?
I think that's the most important part, because how you present yourself that's the main thing. It's your branding, it's what people say about you, it's what you say about yourself.
And also I think with this as well is that in our roles as BD and marketing professionals, I feel, at least if I speak for myself, my first initial reaction to these things is like, oh, but I know this already. This is what I've been doing for 15 years. But actually, now reading it, there's lots of things that I picked up that are actually quite maybe new to me or different from the way I used to do them. And only through reading that, it sparked an interest, a curiosity to think about things maybe slightly differently, which also helps in your own personal development. So we can obviously read personal development books, but I think reading on meta related subjects related to our role is still quite useful. So don't think you know it all already, but try to embrace it and learn something new from the experience that other people have had in our industry.
100%.
Totally agree. This is how we learn, right? We learn from others. We learn from other people's experience.
This is how we learn. So I think now we have to do the big book swap.
It's happening. Let's go.
All right.
I am going to give you this.
Okay. Have you read this?
It's on my night cabin.
Okay.
I want to give you this one.
Perfect.
Barbara, thank you. I'll take this one. The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. Excellent.
Perfect.
And then, I have one more that called How to Change. We haven't really talked about it, but it's about what comes between you and change. And there are a lot of practical aspects to influencing people into change, for example. And I find that quite useful in the workplace. So although it's probably more designed to, help you implement change in your life, but I find that there are quite a few tools for influencing people in the workplace. So there you go. That's for you.
Awesome.
Great.
Cool. That's it. Thank you, guys.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Can't wait for the next session.
Yes.